Pumphrey.
I'm Company.
And we're Pumphrey and Company.
Here we restore collector cars from the antique and classic era, as well as European sports cars.
We'll be producing videos on both historical facts on automobiles, as well as technical things from machining, sheet metal work, fabrication. We'll produce more of the one that you like, as long as you give us some feedback. If you like it, subscribe.
If you really like it, tell your friends.
Okay, Nick, take it away.
Alright, today we're talking about a 1921 Locomobile.
I think we should apologize first and foremost. It's the end of the day. We are dirty. We are working men after all.
Oh, he's dirty.
I
just put on a clean shirt.
Okay. So, Locomobile.
1921. Alright, this is a Locomobile Sportif. It is a 48 horse, 525 cubic inch engine. It's primarily made of silicon bronze.
48 horse. You telling me that this thing is 48 horsepower to a
6,000
pound?
Obviously,
plus
48
vehicle?
horses isn't going to move a 6,000 pound car, but it is a 48 horse. And why is it 48 horse?
I don't know. You tell me. Well, it's 48 horse. Okay. I'll tell you. 48 horse because it was a way that the government taxed people. Today we have gas guzzlers tax, and we have luxury taxes, and we have property tax. Anyways, taxes go on forever. But the back in the era, they had a tax based on the bore size. Some formulas used bore and stroke. Some formulas just used bore. In this case, it used bore and stroke, and that's why 525 cubic inches. Same thing with a Packard 448. That's a 48 horse car, but that car is again 525 cubic inches. There were three designations that cars typically followed, or four. Model T was, I think, 20, 25. Rolls-Royce carried the same designation, and then Pierce, the three Ps, which was Pierce, Packard, Peerless, they had a 38-48, and then Pierce Arrow had the largest, and that was a 66. That was a monster engine. Hopefully we'll be able to do a video on one of those. But so other strokes, talking about the taxes, you had England used a formula just based on the bore. So you wound up with some of these strangest bore-stroke combinations because it would be a tiny little bore with a huge stroke. And it was a way to say that your car's a 30 horse, but really it's a monster motor in there. So, among other reasons to give a big stroke, but that was the idea there. So what else on the Locomobile?
Well, on this...
What kind of body is this? Let me grab the camera and show the body a little bit. Sportif body, all right. So this would have been a body used by the owner-driver, which is rare. Most cars, this car was the most expensive automobile in 1921, retailing at about $10,000. Model T would have been $300 to $400, and most $10,000 automobiles, like the Packard next to it, would have been a chauffeur-driven car. Today it's not that much fun because it's a big, giant body. At least here, the body is narrow, long, and it's typically lightweight. So that's a big draw to this car, is the body style. Going back to the engine, it's a T-head. You want to tell us about the T-head? Let's grab the camera. Let's show them what the T-head is.
Well, obviously,
what's a T-head?
It's not a Model T-head because it's...
No, it's not a Model T-head. The T-head designates, you can see all those beautiful spark plugs lined up there. But you can see you have a valve spring on this side, you'll have a valve spring on this side. An L-head or flathead, like a flathead Ford, is an L-head, so it would have both valves on this side. Well, on a T-head, the cylinder's here. You have an exhaust or an intake, in this case, intake valve on this side and exhaust valve on this side. So you have two cylinders per jug, and it simply makes a T. So the idea is that you could really have a lot of cross flow with this design ahead. The drawback to this style ahead is your compression ratio is low because your combustion chamber is massive. So you'd have 3 spark plugs. You could even go as high as 4 spark plugs per cylinder in the case of like a Pierce Arrow 66, which the combustion chambers are like the size of a 5-gallon bucket. So not literally, but figuratively. So you had to have your flame front burning fast enough to get a clean, consistent burn across the chamber. Otherwise, you'll leave raw fuel on one side, and you'll just have burnt fuel on the other. So there's a T-head. What kind of material is this engine made out of?
engine is primarily silicon bronze, along with the transmission and the rear axle. This is a 7-bearing main.
Now, the 7-bearing main is interesting, and I'll talk about that for a second. Everybody always thinks more main bearings, the better. That's not always necessarily true. So, some of these old cars had lots of main bearings, so others had few. The interesting thing to note is that everybody was trying to get a clean and consistent straight line for the crank. So they had different ideas. Locomobile built everything massive. They built locomotives, steam engines, then they got into internal combustion engines such as this. And the idea here is you build it with mass. So you have silicon bronze everywhere. You have a silicon bronze engine, transmission, rear end, and you have a 4-point mount. So you have 4 points, 2 points here, 2 points there. Problem is inevitably the chassis is going to flex. And it's going to flex and move the main bearings around. You're going to wear your main bearings. Whereas other manufacturers, Ford, brilliantly designed the 3 points. You'd have 2 in the rear and you'd have 1 in the front snout. And that allowed the chassis to flex, and it didn't mess with the main bearings at all. So here they built it massive, strong, and it didn't flex that direction. Packard used a hoop that it mounted to each side of the frame, but the engine could pivot on the center post. So they designed the 7 mains, and then the 7 mains hold the crank very, very straight. Well, there's still going to be flex and harmonics in that crank. There's nothing you can do about it. The idea is, do you want those harmonics to wiggle through the crank, or do you want them to be gyrated right into the mains? Well, it's an argument. The best crank is a very short crank. We know that today. But here it was long, because that's how the engine was, and they used 7 mains. It works very well, but your oil pressure has to be high, so the bearings have to be very good in order to get the pressure up. We'll take you through. Let's take a look at this air pump here. We have an onboard air compressor there, as you can see, off of the clutch and transmission here. Transmission is based there, again, silicon bronze. And I'm not going to climb through to show you the rear end, but we get an idea. Of course, valve springs again. They have covers on them to keep the dust and dirt out. What else do we have? It is amazing that a 6,000 plus pound vehicle that's made out of silicon bronze, German silver, and jeweler silver made it through the scraps for the war industry. But here it is. It survived. So, what else, Nick?
It came in after 100 years running on its original engine. It did run when it came in.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable that and these cars were used, right? They weren't just used for 5 years and or 10 years like today and ditched. They were used throughout their life because you purchased the car, say in 21, well, you used it up through the 30s like a traditional car, and you couldn't purchase a car through World War II, of course, because they were manufacturing war goods. So then you continue to use the car. Now, there was a little bit of a separation there where the classics and later cars after 27 took over, and they were really a mainstay because they were faster automobiles as the roads got better. But they were used a lot. And so to say that it's still running on the original main bearings for 100 years, it means it's massive down there with those 4 points. So it's pretty cool. Original wiring, and there's original paint underneath. Cool. What else? What's your favorite thing about this car?
My part's almost done.
Your part's almost done. All right, well, what else do we have to say? Thank you for watching. Post some questions. I guess that's about it, huh?
Yeah, if you want to see more pictures of it, check out our Facebook page. We have pictures of it posted on there.
PumphreyandCompany.com. See ya.